Ram Sanchara Atulita Baladhana Himashela Madeham Tanujaran Prashana Haninama Sakalaguna Nidhana Vanaranam Nadisham Rapupati Priya Bhaktam Bhaktajatam Roshpadi Kriptavarisam Mashiki Kritarakshasam Ramayana Mahamalaratnam Andirnalatmajam Anjananandanam Viram Janaki Shokanashanam Kabisamakshanam Dharam Andelanka Sindho Salilam Salilam Yashokalani Janakatmaja Adartani Padalanka Namamitam Pranjali Ranjanem Manojavam Marututuya Vegam Jitendriyam Buddhimatam Pradishtam Atatmajam Vanarayutamukyam Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadye Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadye Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadye Shri Ramadutam Sharanam Prapadye Anjaneyamati Patalan Kanchanadra Vigram Avijad Taramuru Asanam Avayami Avamananam Yatra Yatra Raghunatha Kirtana Tatra Tatra Kritamastakhanjali Vashpavale Paripurna Lochanam Martinamat Rakshasantakam Guru Bajranga Bali Hanuman Ki Jai hi. So that first prayer that I sang, it's called the Hanumat Stolam. And I usually introduce it to people. I say, this is a prayer to the love that lives within us as who we truly are. That's Hanuman. Hanuman is that part of us, inside or outside, that is always turned towards the love. Always turned toward that place that is the love. Ram asks Hanuman, you know the story, right? I hope. A little bit of it, right? You know that it's from the Ramayana, the story of Hanuman comes to help Ram beat up the bad guys and restore balance and dharma to the world. So at one point Ram says to Hanuman, how do you see me? And Hanuman says, when I identify with the body and everything that goes with that, a particular incarnation or emotions or all our stuff, when I identify with that, I serve you completely. When I identify with the mind, or let's say the Atman, my soul, then you are the whole and I am a part of that. And then he says, but when I know how to get feedback, when I know who I am, you and I are not different, we're one. So this is the whole path in a nutshell. And there's a line in that prayer. The first time I understood it, it just blew me apart. It says, let's see if I can remember it now, in Hindi. Anyway, it says, Hanumanji is seen, always sitting at the foot of this tree, with his eyes red with tears of love. This is his natural state. And this is actually our natural state as well. It's not something different than we are. And that longing that we have to find that's what we're looking for, that place where nothing arises in our minds that is not a part of that love. Right now, we wake up in the morning and we start writing, producing, directing, and acting in the movie of me. The movie of me. All day long, every day, 24/7, 365. And then we write reviews, which we read and get depressed. But not Hanuman. Hanuman is always immersed. Okay, what's going on? Okay? Hanuman's always immersed in that bhavana, in that love, in that flow that's towards the one. This was Maharaji. This is who Maharaji is for us. Everything that happened around him brought us to that place, turned us towards that place. So that's why I always describe that as the love that lives within us as who we truly are. So that movie of me, you know, what do? You can't. Where are the thoughts that you can shoot them as they go by, like in a carnival, you know, the ducks. They just go, and you're thinking. And then, oh, you're thinking something else. So, that's what practice is about. That's the nature of practice. It's something that brings us back, reminds us where to look, reminds us to look, and eventually separates us from that being immediately totally caught by our thoughts. We actually think we're thinking. It's amazing. And the only way that I ever got any clue of this was way back when we were living in the temple with Maharaji. There were these Bengali kirtanwalas who were singing Hare Krishna around the clock, you know, and we used to sing with them. But as soon as Maharaji would come out, we'd go running to be with him. So one day, one of these kirtanwalas tried to seduce one of the Western women that was there in our group. And of course Maharaji found out about it. And in about 2 minutes, all 20 of these guys were loaded onto the back of a truck with all their stuff, driven down to the train and sent home to Vrindavan, where they came from. So one of the Indian people said, "Bah, what's going, you know, who's going to sing now?" The Westerners. Oh, who wanted to do that? We just wanted my practice, and the only thing I wanted to do was sit like this all day and stare at him. That was all I wanted to do. It's still all I want to do. He's just made it a little bit more difficult. Damn it. So we were banished around the corner into this little room to sing. And we had one instruction, which was sing. There was no hint of when we might be allowed to stop. Yeah, it's brutal. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. You know, it was just horrible. And, you know, once you ask your mind to actually pay attention, that's when it gets a good laugh at you. So we're sitting there, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, and immediately the mind just goes everywhere else but there. I was reliving my life, you know. Yeah, wow, I remember when I was born. Yeah, no, I don't. Let's see, what do I remember? Just on and on. And all the time, Hare Krishna's going on, because you can't stop. So it's going on, I'm not paying any attention. For hours, for days at a time. I just kept reliving my life. I remember my old girlfriend back in the States before the Hare Krishna. Then I remember she broke up with me, Hare Krishna, because you can't stop. You know. After a while, and it was only because he forced me to keep singing, after a while, something actually happened. Who knew? Who knew? I had no idea anything was going to happen. And what happened was, there was kind of a gradual figure ground reversal. Instead of it being me thinking with this little Hare Krishna in the background, it kind of switched. And the mantra was going on, and thoughts would come, and they would just float through like clouds in the sky. And I wasn't thinking them. It was the strangest experience. They would just go through this space. And the mantra became like home. It became like home. So sweet, so easy, so relaxed. But he had forced me to do that. He had to force me to sit there and sing until something happened. Otherwise I would have never gone through, the boredom, all the stuff that comes up. One of those channels would have caught me, and I would have been lost, again. But because he told us to sing, and we had to keep singing, something happened. It was the first clue that I had of what's in there, what these practices can do, and kind of how they work. I wasn't asked to look at my thoughts. I wasn't asked to examine my thoughts. I wasn't asked to evaluate how it was going. He just said, sing. And everything came from that. Everything, the experience came from within me. So that's where it's going to come, and where it does come for all of us, within us. Where else could it come from? So at a retreat like this, we have an opportunity to immerse ourselves in all the different practices and all the different things that are going on. They all feed into the same place, which is who we are, into here, into us. There's nowhere else to go. There's nobody else to be. But we're not trained to let go, right? We're not trained to let go. My mother didn't say, now, Jeffrey, just sit there and relax and let the thoughts go. Nobody in my life, there was one saint in my family. She was considered a saint by the family, and she had one qualification which made her a saint. She didn't complain. That was her qualification. So, yeah, we don't have, when Ram Dass talks about this unconditional love, loving presence, loving awareness, this is something that we're not taught in school. We don't see it as we grow up. The love that we are exposed to is physical, emotional, sexual, personal, interpersonal love. Unconditional love is not kind of in our consciousness as we're growing up. So we don't develop the wiring for it. We don't develop the wiring for that energy to flow through. When I first read the Ramcharitmanas in New Hampshire at Ram Dass's father's place, I couldn't get it through like a line without falling apart, crying on the floor. Because this was just that. This was all about that kind of love, right? Somebody would be walking through the jungle and they ran into Ram and they started looking at him. And they started looking at him, and then the description, his eyes were so wide and beautiful, and his eyelashes like this, and then the guy's completely lost in this love, right? And then boom, they keep walking. The story comes back and it moves along. It was unbelievable. And it felt like the essence of everything I was looking for in all the things in my life, all the different aspects of my life. I wanted that. But I think that's always here. That's in there, in here. It's just that we don't look. We aren't trained where to look, how to look. We don't remember to look. So we don't see. Until something happens and then, oh, we get a little hit and we remember, but then we forget. The practice is what stabilizes us more in that openness to that place within us. The different practices all work. They all move us in the same direction, which is breaking our attachment to our thoughts and our story, the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves and about our lives. So in that movie of me, of which there are 300 movies going on right now, all together in the same space, all these movies. And each one is completely different. It's amazing, right? Now Maharaji was in each one of those movies, and he interacted with the movie maker, specifically in the way the movie maker could respond and would understand. And if you were sitting, if you've read the book Love Everyone, you get a taste of what it was like to sit around with him during a day. If there were 20 people there, there would be 20 completely different stories about what happened that day. And what he did and what he said, completely different. Really amazing. Because he was awake and he entered into our dreams and he woke each one of us up inside of our own dreams. So we saw him our own way, each one of us. And this is exactly what Krishna does with the gopis. He makes love to all these gopis in exactly the way they want to be made love to in their secret heart of hearts. That's how he loves each one individually. And they all think Krishna's only with me. And yet they're all dancing with Krishna playing the flute in the middle. And they're all dancing around Krishna, and each one of them thinks they're alone with Krishna. It's so beautiful. So, Raghu said I have to speak about negative emotions. Welcome. How's that for negativity? Huh? Negative emotions, boy, that's pretty much where we live. How do you talk about it when it's who we identified with so long? We think it's normal. We think it's the way things are. To be selfish and afraid and guilty and greedy and all that stuff, and all about me. We think that's normal. Or at least we think that's the way it's supposed to be. We take it for granted that this is life. But when I went to India, I met people who weren't like that. I was astounded. People who would feed us and take care of us, and they didn't want anything back. They weren't doing it for any selfish reason that we could see. It was astounding. They got joy out of doing it, but they weren't doing it to get the joy. It was just natural for them. I want to be like that when I grow up. the longing we have to taste that love, to have that love in our lives, that's what saves us. That's actually being pulled from within. When you experience that longing, it's actually how we beings feel when we're being pulled from within into ourselves. It's already moving in that direction. And that longing is grace. It's grace. It's the fruition of our own karmas coming. And it ruins your life. Because nothing's ever enough. If you think your life is supposed to be about getting enough of this or that, forget about it. It won't work. Because you get what you want, and the longing is still there, right? What do? You have to find what that is and move in that direction. You don't have to change the outside so much as not try to get water from squeezing a stone. You know? You can't. All you get is bruised hands. It's hard to overcome all the habits of mind that we have, the habits of thought. There's a beautiful bhajan in India sung by one of the great singers of all time, Bhimsen Joshi. And so he says, oh Lord, I've gone to all the pilgrimage places. I've done worship at all the different temples. I've gone everywhere. I've done that, and I just can't stop the way my mind flows out to the outside world. The vasanas of my own mind. The channels that my mind keeps flowing through. I can't. What do I do? But of course, the expression of that, the singing of that, the prayer is already different. Because the connection is deeper than all that stuff. And so he's singing, he's experiencing that connection when he sings. Maharaji always said to us, Ram Nam Karna Se Sab Pura Ho Jata. From repeating these names of God, everything is brought to fullness and completion. Everything is made full. It's a ripening process. And these practices put our hearts out in the sun, and we are ripened. And you can't speed up the ripening process. It's a process that goes on and has its own. Once it's in the sun, that's it. That's all you can do. So that's why he always said, purify and wait for grace. Keep removing the dust on the mirror of the heart. In the first line of the Hanuman Chalisa, I take the lotus, the pollen-like dust from the lotus feet of the Guru, which is pure love, pure awareness, pure consciousness, pure bliss. And I clean the mirror of my heart. And that's the first, that's what we're doing. We're cleaning that mirror so that when we look, we see what's really there, not all the dust. The dust is all our stuff. All the things we identify with, all our stuff. Should we have some questions and stuff? Okay. You got a mic? Raise your hand if you have something to say.
Could you talk about despair?
My favorite thing. What about it?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Do you still get despair, like the kind of despair when, you know, you didn't make it back to India before Maharaji left the body? Type of despair, or like, do you still get that?
Only every day.
Oh. But then that means that you unget it every day, yeah?
Yeah. No, I don't get it the same way. It doesn't. I no longer. Those clouds don't cover all the sky, all the time. Sometimes. I hear you.
Is it just because of the chanting?
The chanting? What do you mean, just?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, that's not what I meant.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Chanting is everything. I know. It's meditation. It's finding God. It's everything.
The chanting only happens by Maharaji's grace in the first place.
Right.
So that's what I'm. So yeah, it is. It's all by His. It's all by His grace. I don't know how to say it any other way.
Okay, but
what do you want to know? What do you
okay, let me go ahead and ask what I want to know.
Yeah.
In front of 300 people that I probably won't ever see again.
What do you mean? We're all going to stalk you?
I wish. Okay. You had Maharaji, and then you lost him. And that was real when you went to black despair, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Then you got somewhat better, you decided to chant for him in America, and it wasn't quite right. So you decided to go back to India, right?
I guess so.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
My question is.
What's the question?
Okay, my question is, I feel like you're the only person on the planet that knows what the despair that I feel feels like. And I'm sure that's not true, but that's my limited knowledge. So I also have, I'm hoping that you have figured out a way to not have such despair. And is that correct? And if it is it just because you just get up and chant anyway, whether you do or you don't?
As far as I'm concerned, in my little story, the best thing that Maharaji ever did for me was to disappear from the body. Otherwise, I was attached to his physical body completely. I hated myself, and I loved him. But that's assuming that he's him and I'm me. That's my story, not his. So, by leaving the body, he forced me to eventually look inside of myself. And I started singing when I realized that if I did not sing with people, that I would never be able to clean out the dark corners and the shadows of my own heart. And I knew that that was the only thing that was causing me pain. So that process began, or took on, moved in that direction from that point on. And that's what's been happening. Everybody has despair to one degree or another. We all want the same thing, and more than likely, we're all still looking for it to some degree or another. And we're all walking these paths together, you know. We're alone, and we're also not alone. And I'm alone, but I'm not lonely. There's a difference. I'm alone when I'm with people, but I'm not lonely, except when I am. What to do? So, when I was really having a nervous breakdown, and I had my head in his lap, and I was crying, and I said, what am I going to do with my life? All I do is think about myself. I'm so impure. He said, attachment. It's all attachment. He didn't buy my storyline. Yeah. He said, what are you going to do? Jump in the river? It was only 6 or 7 inches deep, and I figured if I could get my head in the right place between a couple of rocks, it might work, you know? And then he said, you can't die. Worldly people don't die. Only Jesus died the real death. What? And he said, why? Because he never thought of himself. Thoughts of me never arose in that being. There was no me left in Jesus, just like any true saint. There's no me in there. There's no planet of me around which all the bullshit orbits. So the bullshit just flies away. Orbits around somebody else's me. It's the same stuff. Yeah. He was saying it very kindly, but he also wasn't buying into the bullshit, you know. He patted me on the head and said a few things. So it was, you know, because he loves us as we are, we just were ourselves there. We didn't all wear the same clothes and walk in, you know, we didn't even like each other, all of us. We tolerated, most semi-tolerated some of us, but we didn't like each other. And he didn't care. It was very unusual, to say the least. Especially these days when, you know, people wear all the uniforms and say all the same things and march in step, you know. He was just, we were just hanging out with him in that space, in that wide open space of unconditional love. And we would be, I'd be sitting right in front of him, and some story would start in my head, and I'd start to feel really depressed and upset, and you know, he hit me in the heart with a banana, and I looked up and go, ah. He was right on it, you know. One day it was tea time, and the cook came out with a big bucket full of the clay cups and a big thing of tea, and he started pouring the tea, and I thought, we're all sitting around with Maharaji, and I thought, I should help I'm going to help the cook. And, no, you're not. That's just ego. You just sit here and be quiet. I said, well, I'm just going to help the cook. No, I said, don't do that. Well, it's all inside of my head, sitting there, right? All of a sudden, he just looks at me and says, yeah, serve the tea. You know, we actually would forget, though. We actually thought we could hide from him, you know. And, yeah. All right. Yes, sir. Mic on? Yeah.
We tell the story of
Mike?
We tell the story of Maharaji and the ghosts.
The ghost. Yeah, you know, one thing he once said, that these people came and they wanted to use his name to raise money for a school, which is, it sounds like it, not a bad idea. But he said, no, you can't use my name. When they left, he said, people come here and they try to fool me. I go on fooling the whole world, and they come here and try to fool me. He just had this way of, so there was a man who lived in a small, very, very small village named Kenchi, and his name was Purnanand. And this was back in, I think, the 50s, or no, it was earlier than that, it was in the 40s, and he had to go to Nainital for some legal business. And he got there and he found out that he hadn't brought the paperwork that he needed. So he had to go back to the village. So in those days there were very few buses, very few cars, very few trucks. So it turned out that late at night he was walking home in the dark through the mountains, on these mountain roads in the dark. And he was a very excitable man. He was pretty scared. And he came to this area that was known as Getia, which is, there's a tree there. Mr. Shah, there's a tree there. And there's a chain hanging down from the tree. And it's believed that a sadhu had caught a ghost and tied it to that tree so it wouldn't bother people. And people avoid that tree as much as they can. They just... So now it's the middle of the night, and he has to walk right by this tree. And as he gets closer, he sees there's someone sitting in the dark, in the middle of the night, by the tree. And he tries to, like, he's just about when he's thinking of trying to walk the other direction, someone, that being at the foot of the tree, the ghost tree, says, Purnanand, come here. And he goes, oh shit. He knows who I am. I can't run away. What am I going to do? So he gets a little closer and gets a little closer, and he sees, from the description, he had never met Maharaji, but he sees that it's Maharaji sitting there in the middle of the night by the ghost tree. And he says, Baba, what are you doing here? He says, I'm just avoiding all the ghosts in Nainital. All the spirits in Nainital. The people. But he said, so Pointer says, okay, so he says, okay, you go. He said, a truck will come by in a few minutes and pick you up, don't worry about it, just walk down the road. So Pointer says, Baba, will I see you again? And Maharaji says, yeah, in 20 years, go on, get out of here. So Pointer thought, he's just trying to get rid of me, 20 years, he's never seen me again. Pretty much 20 years to the day, someone comes and knocks on Pointer door. He said, there's a Baba who wants to meet you. He's sitting in the field across the street. It's Maharaji. And he took that land there. He built Kenchi on that land. What are you going to do with somebody like that? Except love him. Right? I mean, it's the only option. Where can you run where he's not going to be? So, okay, I'm here, I give up. If it was only so easy to give up. Surrender is not an act of will. Surrender is an act of grace. We purify and we wait for grace. We purify our hearts. We become less selfish, less self-centered, less full of guilt and shame, less full of all our stuff. And we make our hearts a place where he can live, he can move in. But you can't drag him in there. You can only be ready. And that's how we transform our lives. And then ultimately we find that's where he is anyway. And he's always been there. It's always been there. That love has always been here. Who has the mic? Raise your hand so you can see it.
So Buddha supposedly said that central tenet of being a human being is suffering, and we could probably all attest to that. So I'm a little confused. Suffering is something we experience, most of us experience perhaps most of the time, and yet God, Maharaji, is spoken about all the time as unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my confusion is the contradiction between a God that's unconditional loving and the human reality of suffering on such a massive basis.
It's not massive, it's individual. Every suffering is individual to the person involved. So the Buddha also said a few other things in that, he said the causes of suffering are this, the path to the freedom from the suffering is this, and then we didn't just say the suffering, give it up, forget it, it's over. Right?
Right.
Okay, that's the one big thing, by the way, to recognize. So these people that you mentioned that have become unconditional love, have recognized that. Those are the people who applied the remedy.
So where the massive comes in is...
Why is that mic not working? Don't know. Okay.
So, correct me if I'm mistaken, but it still seems like the vast majority of people on this planet probably suffer most of their lives.
I guess that's true. Yeah, at this time. But it's one life at a time. The seeds we plant in this life, even if we are not fully free, they grow and they bring fruit as well. So if we're planting seeds right now of openness and kindness and charity and compassion and awareness, even if we are suffering right now, those things will also grow and help us in the future. And you can't be totally immersed in your suffering and plant those kind of seeds. So you came here. If you'd been totally immersed in your suffering, you would have been home drinking beer and watching TV. And you wouldn't even know there was anything you could do to alleviate the suffering. That's already a fruit of seeds you yourself must have planted in the past. So we reap what we sow, and we sow what we reap. And right now we're sowing seeds by accepting that, by first of all, the recognition that you're suffering. Most people don't think they're suffering. And if they do think they're suffering, they're angry about it because they don't understand there's anything to do about it. So they're not at that moment in a position to change the way it unfolds, right? That's, you know, remember George W.? Remember when we thought that was bad? Oh boy, I'd vote for him now. So I was watching TV once, and I was flipping through the channels, and CNN, right? And there was a shot of the great president walking down the aisle, this hallway, and he was on the way to meet the widows, the first group of widows from the Iraq War, right? And the camera's following the great president on his way. He's walking all full of himself, right? Yes, hey Joe, how you doing, Frank? Yeah, I'm the president. That's good. Okay, here we go. And he opens the door to this room full of women, and he bursts out crying like a baby, weeping. I couldn't hate him anymore. I was really pissed. This poor mother, this poor guy. Look at the suffering he's created. He's looking at it right now, right? He's looking at these women, these widows. And he's responsible for that. Even though he's also the tool of big business and all that bullshit. He's the one who made the order. Go ahead, go in there and do this. He's created all this suffering for them, for himself. He's done, every action is a seed. And he's going to have to live with that, one way or another. I felt compassion for him. I couldn't help it. I tried to help it. It was really heartbreaking. Because he doesn't know, right? And so he does all these things as if there's no it's really painful. So, yeah, suffering. When Buddha came out of the jungle, basically he was saying, stuff don't work. You know, you can't get water from a stone. And the people who pay attention to him are the people who are on the path. And they try to recognize when he's trying to get water from squeezing a stone, and then they say, oh, can't do that. And they put the stone down and turn on the water at the sink. So it wasn't that there's only suffering and that there's always be suffering and there's no way out of it. It's that we recognize that when we act in a certain way, only suffering can come from that. But when we release those negative actions, those actions of trying to get happiness from things, trying to find, dare I say, love in a relationship. I dared. You know, I was once very much in love with somebody, and I was telling my Indian father, Mr. Tiwari, all about this woman. And he was just listening. And when I was finished, he looked at me and said, my boy, relationships are business. Do your business, enjoy. But love, he said, love lasts 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. But his point was that love doesn't come from the outside. It's not, you don't fall in it, you don't fall out of it. It's who we are. And if you think you're going to get that love from someone else, and then there'll be no longing anymore, I don't know. What do you think? So, it doesn't mean that, so relationships are a sense, business in the sense of you're trying to get something from somebody by giving them something in return. That's business. So that's fine. Affection, caring, kindness, love, not love, but, being with somebody, being in a relationship is good work. But if you think it's going to make you happy forever, forget about it. There's no way it can. How can it? If you are happy forever, as my grandfather used to say, God bless you. He didn't mean it. But it doesn't, the thing is that those things don't come from the outside. Now you can be in love. Two people can be in a loving presence together. But at that point, they're less separate than they might have thought they were. So, was the only people in the front ask questions here? Okay, hi.
I wonder if you could talk about faith.
Faith?
Faith.
Oh, faith.
Because you had a private audience with God, and
private?
Well,
Which?
I see him right there. Mm-hmm. But you actually saw him in person or in the physical, and I'm sure that affected you so greatly. You devoted your entire life to singing kirtan. So then rock and roll goes away. How do you deal with repetition? How do you deal with the fact that when you focus on one thing, then everything else goes away? What is the journey in which was there a moment like, 15 years after singing the same song over and over again, did you go, oh my God, I'm singing the song again, I'm sitting down again? Those human things, like how do you deal with it? Was there a point in which you were really just can't sing anymore, or was it like, hey, it's just, I could do this, and now, many years later, is it easier or is it harder? It's like the heart, it fluctuates. How do you deal with that?
I sing. I sing, I don't deal with it, I sing.
You put your mind away and you sing it?
No, I just sing.
You don't wonder if you sing rock and roll?
I just sing. I chant. The ability to do a practice comes over time. The ability to do it more fully, more heartfully, comes little by little over time. And I've been doing this for a while. Not that I'm any more than a beginner, really, and as far as I can tell. It's only been 45 years or so. But I really still feel like a beginner. The point is, every time you sit down, it's new. You might have had your day, there might be a pain in your knee, you might be tired, but you give it your best shot every time. You don't judge. I'm not evaluating it. Wow, that was a great kirtan. Yeah. How would I know? People ask me all the time, what do you feel when you sing? How do I know? I'm not looking at that. I'm not paying attention to that. I'm just singing. I keep letting go. Letting go. And if I can't let go, then sooner or later I let go. I think, actually, don't tell anybody, but I think that's a fruit of the practice already. That I'm not so concerned with how it was. Is it going well? I don't know. How would I know? This is my practice. It's not... You know, I kind of flippantly said last night, I don't sing to big groups of people. I wish. You know, the idea is, it's my practice. I'm singing to that, to enter deeply into that space. So anything that is pulling me out of that space, I let go. Again and again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. I'm doing my practice, and we're doing it together. So, all those things that you asked, my answer is, I sing. That's all I do. I don't think about that stuff. You do your practice, and you live your life. The whole thing is that all we do is think about ourselves and evaluate every goddamn thing we do, all day long. It's enough already. So, I just try to let go of that and just get through my day. And that's the thing. You know, I'm not thinking about it. Well, why should I? How would I know? How do we know? One day you feel good about yourself, the next day you don't. What changed? Nothing. Except the way you feel. Right? So, okay.
For 45 years you never lost interest. Like there was never a point in which it was difficult.
No, because I suffer. I suffer when...
You don't suffer.
I do suffer. No, suffering is what keeps me awake. The longing to want to be in the love completely, to be the love completely, is what keeps me singing. And the recognition that I'm not causes me suffering. So I keep singing. What else am I supposed to do? Tell me, please. I'll do it. Anything but this. No, this is it, you know. One hand, squeeze box, cheap little Indian instrument, you know. I'm in heaven. This is what I want to do. This is what I do. You know. I didn't even have to learn Indian music. It's difficult. It's a lifetime study. I was too busy singing.
And a new language.
I don't understand what I'm saying. I don't understand English either, so what's the difference? What these things mean, what these chants mean, ultimately is who we really are. And the real meaning of them is how they allow us to let go of who we think we are. And then the real meaning of these chants is not something we know up here. Although, yes, there are storylines involved, beautiful storylines, which we can learn from and grow from. But ultimately, that's not the final thing, you know. It's the feeling. And there. And if you're thinking about all that stuff, then you're not remembering the feeling. You're not moving in that direction. So you let go. That's why simple. I remember once I sang in, one of the first times I sang in LA, I got a review in the paper. And it said, well, Krishna sang, he kind of looked like a dentist. And then the next line was, and it was a little repetitious. At least he was listening. a little repetitious, you know. This is about it. If I can manage to repeat the same line over and over, that's good. It ain't rocket science, but that's good. The same thing over and over. You know. It's not easy to get the mind to pay attention. You know, the same thing over and over is about all I can do, and I'm happy with that.
Thank you.
Where are you? Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so I once thanked you for sharing your practice with us, and
I belted you, right?
What?
Boom, left hook.
Yeah, and you didn't appreciate that.
Yeah. Listen, this is proof. This is proof that you can sing your ass off and still be an asshole.
This is my question for you, because I've actually thought about it a lot. I think that whole concept of being really cognizant of your ego and not letting your ego get fluffed up, for lack of a better word.
Fluffed.
Is important. But at the same time, if what you're doing is really just a practice to draw yourself closer to your Guru,
Yeah.
yourself to your one, isn't that, and now you're going to think I'm a brat, but isn't that really
Only if you want me to.
in direct conflict with what the underlying message was of Maharaji, which was to serve others? And so, if what you're doing is just your practice, but do you feel like it's in service of others, or how do you wrap around that? And I'm not trying to be difficult. But
You're just
it's
good
a
at it.
question.
I said to Ramdas at lunch, it's weird to be famous for being humble. People say all the time, oh, you're so humble. And I say, no, I know who I am. Oh, wow, you're so humble. Okay, what can I do? It comes to a point where methinks the lady doth protest too much. You know, fuck it, I'm just going to sing, no matter what. Whether I'm taking it personally or not taking it personally, or it's good or it's bad, or people are singing and not singing, or I'm in my bathroom alone, or I'm with you, I'm going to keep singing. And I always say I sing to save my miserable ass, right? However, through all the years of chanting, my ass has gotten much wider. And all y'all are part of it. Thank you. If I service, you don't have just to serve. It doesn't mean you have to walk around with a big sign saying I'm serving. That's ridiculous. That's not service. You're not serving anybody at that point except your own ego. So the real beings who serve humanity, they have no. They really do service because, you know, one time Tiwari was sitting. Mr. Tiwari, my Indian father, was sitting with Maharaji. Maharaji says, so, you're a Brahmin, you're supposed to know everything. Tell me, what does Krishna teach in the Gita? So now everybody, if you ask that question to me, they basically say, Nishkam karma, selfless service, right? So, he knew it was a setup, but he said it anyway. Nishkam, you miserable Brahmins, misleading the people. Only God does Nishkam karma. Only God does selfless service. Because God is the whole thing. There is no self. There's only that, right? All of us are just doing the best we can. And we're working on thinning that barrier or shell that seems so solid of self. But we don't have to do it with a big sign, carrying around a sign. You know? If I was sitting here thinking I'm really doing something for you, then I'd be like, What should I do now? What should I sing now? Should I make them happy? I should sing faster now. Yeah, louder and faster. Okay, now I'll sing a soft one. Ugh. Why would I think about all that stuff? I just sing. And so do you. And maybe because I'm doing my practice, you could do yours. I don't know. I don't know how it works. But this is what the program is at the moment. So. Hallelujah. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So yeah, it's not necessary for me to think about this all the time. It bothers me. It's a pain in the ass. I sing, and then I binge watch, and I don't feel guilty much. So yeah, is that okay? Or you're not happy with me? Okay, I got the thumbs up. We're changing battery? What are we doing?
Check.
Gotcha. Check, check, check. Test, test, check. Call and response. Raise your hands. You pick.
I have a question about practice. When I practice, I feel really wonderful, even when I feel awful, because it's true. And I feel like I've had glimpses through the practice of this remembering who I really am, and that feels wonderful. On the flip side, there are things I do in the world, binging on television, and social media, and politics, and my own opinion.
Binging on your own opinion.
Oh,
wow,
yeah.
That's a good one. I've never heard that before. What a fantastic thing. Thank you.
And that's the exact opposite, where even if I'm having fun, I feel terrible.
You need to learn to enjoy yourself.
So what I'm wondering is, given that I've had a glimpse, it's not like I'm completely ignorant, I'm only mostly ignorant. Given that I've had this glimpse, why do I still choose the path leading away from who I really am? Why wouldn't I want to spend as much time as possible with who I really am? What is that?
Well, habits, really. Just habits. We're trained. We spend our whole life training to be stupid. And how do we get free of that, you know? It takes practice, time. You can't just, you know, cut yourself in half or peel your skin off. Yes, you have to ripen through the practices and through exposure to the teachings and the path. You're not going to stop judging yourself overnight just because you have a glimpse. There's still all that other stuff, that flow of, you know, karma is like waves on the ocean. They come and they crash over us. We don't know how they got here, where they came from, what started it all. That's not our problem. Our problem is how we deal with this moment as best we can, right? So, and through doing practice and through being on the path, those, when you get swept away, you just don't stay swept away quite as long, that's all. And it's the evaluator that is being worn away, washed away by practice. And you'll notice over time, I notice that I'd spend much less time moping around than I used to. And I was born a moper. You know? And it's just so deep within me that I actually miss it. So sometimes I'll mope around the house just for fun. It's amazing. It's so, it feels so good, you know. Well, yeah, it's like being home again, you know. But then, you know, something else happens, and so yeah, it's not just, you got to just keep turning in the right direction. Everything will change as time goes on in its own time frame. We're not only are we not required to understand it or see it clearly, it's not possible. It's the one who's judging all the time who gets thinned out as time goes on. So, don't worry. You know, don't you? Or worry, whatever. I don't know. Whatever you want to do is fine. But things change as time goes on. And it changes from the inside out, you know. I've said this before, but it's like we're born with these glasses on that are in the wrong prescription. And as we move through our lives, the prescription self-corrects. And as we see, we're seeing things differently. So we react differently. We act differently. And then we think about things differently because now we're seeing things differently, and it keeps self-correcting. That's kind of the results of practice. In the meantime, you just got to hang out. You know? Where are you going to go? But it's hard. It's not easy to just relax in the face of all the suffering that comes through the course of the day. But the way the moment impacts us, that changes as time goes on. And of course, the easier we are with things as they enter into this moment, the less we create, the more of the same. So just as a wave crashes over you, if you push against it, you're creating more waves. As you let it just go through, then you're not giving it any of that energy. The energy dissipates. Or so they say. I'm waiting. No? Anybody? Yeah. Don't wait for me to say that. Just raise your hand.
To ask about Maharaj's connection to nature. Didn't feel at one with trees or sea spirits?
I don't know. I have no clue. He fell on one with everything because he had become everything. But he didn't really talk about that stuff that much, you know. Huh? Yeah. He used to go, but I know that there were times when he wandered through the hills, you know, with this one other guy, this one other devotee, just wandered for days and days up to the mountains and all that. He loved nature that way. But, you know, he said something once. He said, there was this great devotee, his name Dada. And they had an incredible relationship, right? So, he says, Dada, I could have been a really big saint, Dada. I could have been a really big saint, but I had one fault. What's that, Dada? Too much compassion. You know, these beings feel everything of everybody, all the time. But their hearts are so wide that it's all inside of them. They suffer, but they don't suffer the way we suffer. They feel the sadness and the suffering of people, but they don't feel it the way we do. And so they're they're only here for us in the first place. These great beings have no personal reason to be here. They don't need anything. They don't need a new car. They don't need a new house. They're completely at ease, at home, wherever they are, in total, absolute love and bliss. And yet, out of compassion for us who don't know that, they stay here for us. That's the reason that without them we wouldn't know what was possible.
Ramdas have 2 S's.
He doesn't know how to spell his name. Because when he was given the name, originally, the man who gave him the name spelled it that way for him in English. In Hindi, English, there's a lot of things that are interchangeable. You know, like a lot of times Das is spelled with 2 S's, sometimes it's spelled with 1. There's no, one thing's not right and one thing's not wrong.
When I'm in my car, I listen to you. So who do you listen to when you're in your car?
Well, truth is, I don't listen to anybody. The truth is, when I can be somewhere where there's nothing hitting my ears, I'm very happy. I like quiet. But if I was to listen to somebody, you know, my favorite guys are Ray Charles and Van Morrison, those guys, the old guys, old jazz guys. But I just don't listen to that much. And I took a sabbatical some time ago. So long ago I can't remember, but it turned out to be about 4 months of no traveling, which was a big thing, not to pack a bag, not to travel, not to get on a plane. And I remember 3 or 4 times I was sitting on the couch and I thought, oh, I don't have to get up right now. I can just sit on the couch. Wow. Of course, the next thing I knew, I was doing something in some other part of the house. But there were, you know, I move so much of the time, that when I'm not moving, it's just, wow. Still, there's mental things to do. You can't stop your mind, you know. But after 4 months, it actually slowed down a little bit. And I also listen to Lama Gyarme. The CD is the Lama's Chant. I love this guy to life. Just look up the Lama's Chant. The Lama's Chant. The Lama's Chant. That's the CD. Look it up, you find it. And I met him finally. Oh wow, it was so great. I met him and he's a Lama, and Tibetan Lama. He's actually from Bhutan. And his guru left him in Paris on one trip to the West, way back in, I think, the 70s. And so he's been in Paris all these years, teaching. And he teaches in French. It's just Tibetan talking French. It's just too weird. And so finally I got to meet him. I went to meet him. I went to his place, and it was so wonderful. And so I met him, actually, the first time I met him was in Barcelona. He was come from Paris to give some teachings, and my friends brought me there, and we went up to say hello, and so he asked me they told him I was a big chanter. So he said, well, what do you chant? I said, well, you know, Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Hare Krishna. He said, oh, you chant to the masters. And I thought, oh wow, that's a nice way of saying it. And then he took me and we went together into the room where these people were waiting for him to give a teaching and stuff. And he asked me to sing. So, okay, you know, I couldn't say no. So I sang a little Namah Shivaya. And I'm sitting there, and he's sitting here. And then he started to sing. And I started crying like a baby. I've been listening to him for 20 years on CD. And I had never heard the tenderness in his voice before. And and I have to admit to you, my first thought was, oh wow, I bet you this is what people feel when I sing. And it was so humbling, it was so, it was, oh my God. And the other thing, you know, he'd been talking to this group of people and then he just started singing. He didn't even take a breath. It was as natural as talking. It was so beautiful. It was such a beautiful moment. The Lama's chant. Usually when we play it, you don't have that with you, Kev? You have that with you, the Lama's chant? Yeah, usually before chanting, when people are coming in, we play that, some of his chanting. I met him, so then I went to Paris and met him, we hung out, it was so sweet. Really, so sweet. So yeah, that's more, I listen to him more than I listen to anything. Yeah, where's Mike?
So you spoke about your sabbatical. You spoke about singing in the shower or in the bathroom.
Mm. Were you there?
And if all of no.
Okay.
That's actually what my question is if all of this went away, as it did for you, say during your sabbatical, would the practice still be the same?
Would the practice still be the same? Well, no, I miss singing with people. When I sing with people, it really helps me so much, you know. If we sing for 3 hours, that's 3 hours out of the day when I don't have to be my normal depressed asshole self. It's fantastic. Can you get better than that? So without that, I have, you know, I kind of had to live with myself again in a new way. It wasn't so bad. It was, I mean, compared to like 25, 30 years ago, it was vacation. Yeah, I really missed singing with people. Because I did sing at home, and it's very different. But it's good also, but it's a little different, you know, to be honest. And yeah, it was good. Another 20 years at home might be good, but it's next life maybe. So a couple more questions and then we'll do a Chalisa to finish off. Where's the mic? Okay.
Could you speak about silent mantra meditation? Silent use of
Speak
mantra?
about silence?
Mantra? Using mantra?
It's called japa, and japa means a repetition of mantra, usually silently, whereas chanting or kirtan and bhajan is out loud. You know, even when we're singing out loud, the mind is still the thing that's repeating the mantra, but it adds the body. You add the body to it. It makes it easier to pay attention because there's more of you busy with it. And it's good for everybody who hears it. You know, they say that hearing these names, I really think Maharaji has me chanting so I can hear the name, because the hearing is like an internal, it's the name, it's like there's a, you know, St. John of the Cross said, in the beginning the Father uttered one word. That word is his Son, and he utters him forever in everlasting silence. And it is in silence that the heart must hear. So silence is not just quiet. Silence is that is presence, is being. And all these practices move us into that being, or make us more aware of that being. For me, at this point, there's not much difference between singing outwardly and singing silently. But technically I think there is, but I don't know what it is. Different groups say different things, Some groups say, oh, you have to chant out loud because everybody hears it. But let me just say something about chanting in general. Krishna, a great saint in the 1800s, he described how chanting the names of God works. First of all, he said that every repetition of the name, of one of these names, carries Shakti, there's magnetism, there's power in every repetition of the name. Whether it's done fully or partially or half-assedly, there's still power in that. And he said every repetition of the name is like a seed. Okay? Like a seed. And in the seed, the tree is in a seed, but it's very small. There's a potentiality there. So he said every repetition of one of these names is a seed. Now, some of these seeds get caught by the wind and they get blown onto the roof of an old house in the middle of nowhere. Right? And in those days, the houses that were made with tiles, the roofs that were made with tiles, those tiles were baked in the sun. So they weren't really, really, really hard. Now those seeds of the repetition of the name that get caught between the tiles on the roof of this old house, with the coming and going of seasons and rain and wind and snow and all that stuff, sun, the tiles begin to break down and get soft. And then the seed of the name begins to take root. The roots begin to grow. And they grow, and they grow, and they destroy the roof of this old house. And they keep growing, and they destroy the walls of the house. Okay? Got it? That house is who we think we are. That house, it's a collection of stuff put together temporarily. That's me. That's the me-ness. The karmas that created that. It's created from something, and the name destroys that. And the house, there's an inside and an outside, right? There's me and there's you. And there's me and there's everything else. When the walls of that house have been destroyed, we're no longer imprisoned by that me-ness. We don't lose anything, we gain the whole universe. We've become not separate any longer. Now you notice, where is the person we were talking to before? You notice, Ramakrishna didn't say, you feel like this or you feel like that. Why not? Because it isn't important. It isn't about me and how I feel when I'm repeating the name. It's about planting the seeds. And you plant the seeds when they're planted correctly. This means more wholeheartedly, right? More fully paying attention, really planting a seed well, rather than just throwing it out on the concrete. And according to how it's planted, the seed will grow. So, that separateness from which all our suffering comes, the feeling of being separate, is eliminated by the practice of the repetition of the name. And because the walls of our separateness are dismantled. It was only a temporary structure anyway, right? Although, if you believe in karma and reincarnation, that structure keeps on getting rebuilt. And what did Buddha say? The last thing he said, "Oh, house builder, you won't build any more houses for me. No more me. Just this." So just do your practice, live your life. From practice we get the strength to live the way we want to live and to be the kind of people we want to be. We get the strength to be good people, to not think about ourselves all the time, take others into account more. Without carrying a sign saying, "Look at me, I'm taking others into account." That's not real service. Okay, we're going to sing a Chalisa. Oh, I don't have the band here. How can I do that? Okay, we'll try it. That's what it was. Put it on. What did somebody ask for? What the hell do you need to listen? Well, hallelujah. Shri Guru Charan Saradaraja Juma Mukuru Sudham Varano Rahuga Yamala संत के तुम रखवारे असुर में कंदन राम दुलारे अष्ट सिंहि मोनि के दात असवर दीन जानकी माता राम रसायन तुम्हारे पास सदा रहो रघुपति के दास तुम्हारे भजन राम को पाए जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसराए अंतकाल रघुवर जाए जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाए और देवता चित्तन धरई हनुमत से सार सुख करे संकट कटे मिटे सब पीर जो सुमिरे हनुमत बलबीर जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई कृपा करो गुरुदेव की नाई जो सत बार पाठ कर कोई चिर ही बंदी महासुख होय जो पर हनुमान चालीसा होया सिद्धि साकी गौरीस तुलसीदास सदा हरिचेरा कीजे नाथ हृदय महादेव तनय संकट हरण मंगलमूर्ति रूप सिया राम लखन सीता सहित हृदय बसल सुरभूप रामचंद्र परमेश्वरम मंगलमूर्ति मारुतनंदन सकल मंगल मूलकं मंगलमूर्ति मारुतनंदन सकल मंगल मूलकं राम जय राम जय जय राम श्री 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 राम जय राम जय signing out with you. Namaste.